All right, we're gonna pick up with another deck list video. Um, this time we're gonna be taking a look at Kaiba's Duelist Kingdom deck in the anime. This one should be a little bit more interesting because it's gonna be a little bit more than just putting in a list of cards that he played. We're gonna have to actually make some choices here, and I'm gonna, of course, take the time to talk about those. So what we're looking at here is we're going to be including any card that he played from the beginning of the anime um, up until episode 45. And then we're also going to include um, the cards played by the dual computer in episode 54. As it was stated in the manga at the very least, and I believe also in the anime, that the dual computer was using his Duelist Kingdom deck in that duel. So, accounting for all of that, we end up with a list of 31 cards with a couple of things that I'm going to want to mention. But first, we're just going to get right into putting some cards into the deck. So we've got Ancient Lamp, Aquamador. Let's see, Battle Ox. Oh, so Aquamador is one of them that was played by the dual computer and only in the anime. So if that one looks a little weird to have in there, that's probably why. We got to have that original artwork, Blue Eyes White Dragon. Yeah, most of the ones in here that are going to look a little bit weird are going to be ones that were played by the dual computer. And let me take just a second here to try to refresh my memory on where Cyberjar came in. That was another one from the dual computer. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So, like I said, pretty much everything that looks a little weird is going to be probably from episode 54 with the dual computer. We've got Tatsumi Giant. Getting back into things that look a little more normal. Judge Man. Jin. We'll go with the new artwork. Yeah, not that it actually matters. Let's see. Yeah, Lord of D was one that, or Lord of Dragons was one that he did play. Well, the dual computer played in both the anime and the manga, so that's a pretty solid inclusion. The one thing that's weird about that is that it's entirely for Flute of Summoning Dragon, but the Flute of Summoning Dragon is kind of meaningless in Duelist Kingdom format. So like that one has always struck me as a little weird. Let's see, we got Ryukishan Powered, Sagi the Dark Clown. Yeah, this does also remind me, Ryukishan Powered. Reminds me that one disappointment that I have with the anime, and this is going to come up a little bit later, is how they absolutely butchered the dual disc duel between Kaiba and Yugi on the roof. Wall of Illusion is also another one from the dual computer. So let's see. Moving into the spell cards. This is one where this is what I was saying was going to come up. See, in the manga, the dual disc duel had its own little unique subset of rules. In that duel in the manga, not only so you would have one active monster card that you could have in either attack or defense position. The rest of your hand would be face down in your spell and trap zones, effectively. And you could attack your opponent's face down cards. If it was a monster, it would be treated as being an attack position. And if it was a spell or trap card, it would just automatically get destroyed. Or if it was a trap, it might get triggered. Similar to how like Yugi would play traps under magical hats. Same kind of deal. So in the manga, Yugi had Swords of Revealing Light in his hand, and it got destroyed when Kaiba attacked that card in his hand. In the manga and in the anime, instead, they used the card Dispel, which is fine, I suppose. Except for the part where it completely like destroys the entire point of the duel. Not the point of the duel, but like the way that the rules worked, which is just I'm terribly disappointed in that. But then they also in that duel showed a second Dispel in his hand. So now we're stuck here with two Dispels, which, if you're familiar with Trinity format, means that we can only that takes up one of the trinities as they for their terminology is how they use it. Where since we have a double of a card, that reduces what we can do in terms of like having more doubles or cards that would be on the ban list. So yeah, it's a minor annoyance, but that is just the way it is. Let's see, we're gonna put in Polymerization. Now, one card on here, it's an anime card that has not been printed, is Negative Energy Generator. So that's a card that it either doubles or triples the attack points of a dark monster. So since it boosts dark monsters, we're just going to use Sword of Dark Destruction because that is the closest to having an analogous effect. I'm pretty sure there are other equipped cards that do target dark monsters, but they all have various additional effects that make them not a good substitution. Also, just as a mention here, for those of you wondering why we can have 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons but only 1 of anything else, that is actually a quirk of the rules as I have deemed them for this format, because in Trinity format, normal monsters are generally unbound, meaning you can have 3 of them in a deck at no cost. But in this format, because it is based on the anime and the manga, where they do only have 1 copy of most cards in their deck, including normal monsters, I chose to increase that limitation to include normal monsters as well. Blue Eyes gets to get around that because of how I have chosen to adapt the Unbound rules. So normally in Trinity format, a monster would be unbound, or a card would be unbound, if it requires multiple copies of itself to be played. Like Destiny Hero Malicious. In order to use its effect, you have to have more than 1 of it. Here, what I've done is said, well, since we have Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, that requires you to have 3 Blue Eyes in order to summon it, therefore, you are allowed to have 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, because otherwise you can't play Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. So Kaiba gets to have 3 Blue Eyes at no cost. So these are all the cards that he plays over the course of the anime in Duelist Kingdom from episodes 1 to 45. And counting the cards played by the Duel Machine in episode 54. So as you can see, we have 9 slots left. So to fill these 9 slots, this is where we have to start making decisions. And this is where you want to look at the strategy of the deck, the aesthetic of the deck, the cards that were available, the rules that you're playing by, to try to make reasonable choices as to what would likely have been included in this deck. So as far as strategy goes here, this is the dual machine cards kind of throw some shenanigans in here. But overall, Kaiba is generally a beatdown focused player. That's what his strategy was in Battle City. It was beatdown and virus destruction. They talk about that pretty openly in the manga. I don't recall if they do in the anime. But so that's what we're going to focus on here. Is we're going to focus on strong monsters and getting more targets for his Crush Card virus. Because if we look at this here, Cyberjar is a target, Wall of Illusion, and Sagi the Dark Clown. But we probably want more than that. So at the very least, we're going to throw in Ryukishan, because that's another dark monster with 1,000 attack points, and it's a card that he did play in the early manga, and I believe he plays it later in the anime also, if I'm remembering correctly. Also, as a side note, if you are building this deck in the TCG, Grappler you see is OCG only. The substitution that I choose is Sentinel of the Seas, because if we compare, that's 13 1000, 13 12. They're both water monsters. Main difference being that this is an aqua and this is a reptile. And the defense points are a little bit different, but Sentinel of the Seas also seems to fit with Kaiba's aesthetic reasonably well. So that's the substitution that I make for that card if you're building the deck specifically in the TCG. Let's see. So to continue on, I would try to focus on dark monsters also. So I picked Dark Titan of Terror, which was included in the TCG Kaiba starter deck. Let's see, Komori Dragon, and a monster called Mikazuki no Yaiba, or in the OCG, Crescent Dragon. And so part of the benefit of all of these being dark monsters, we're going to get into a little bit more about this in a second. So we're going to include some more equip spells and reverse trap. So reverse trap is going to be somewhat similar to Mesmeric Control, the way that it worked in the manga, in that it just dropped a monster's attack points. So this way we can use reverse trap to either hinder our opponents or get one of our monsters below the threshold to be able to be used as a tribute for Crush Card virus. So along with that, we're going to focus a little bit more on equip cards here. We're going to have Dark Energy, which Kaiba played in the manga early on, and will boost a number of the fiends that he has in this deck, because he does have several of them. We are also going to include the spell card Stim Pack, which, just a reminder, we are looking specifically at cards released March 23rd, 2000 or earlier. Stim Pack is the highest attack point boost that you can get in this format from an equip card, and the decrease every standby phase. I mean, that's not really going to actually get a monster in range of Crush Card virus realistically, most likely, but it is technically an option. Then Share the Pain is another card that I think is a very Kaiba card. It's very similar to the Crush Card Virus. You give up one monster in order to force your opponent to get rid of theirs. And especially in Duelist Kingdom format, as I have played it in the past, you generally only want one monster on your field. Because if you're defending, you only need one monster. Because they can't attack directly. And if you're attacking, well, if your opponent only has one monster, then you only need one monster. So odds are they're going to have one monster on the field that is going to be their strongest monster. And so you can use Share the Pain to get rid of, to give up a weak monster on your field in order to get rid of a more powerful monster on theirs. Granted, they do get to choose which monster, but as I said, in Duelist Kingdom, there's generally only going to be one option. Now, for this last one, since we are talking about the anime, I am going to put... I just lost it. So if we were looking at the manga, I would put in Megamorph, but we're not. So Megamorph is not really an appropriate choice because it was not released in the time frame that we're looking at, and it does not appear in the anime until the Pyramid of Light movie. If I'm remembering correctly. It definitely doesn't show up in Duelist Kingdom in the anime. Megamorph is kind of weird in that regard. It shows up in the early manga. It shows up in the Toei anime. It's in the OCG, not the OCG, the Bandai card game that was released in 1998, I believe. Was it 98? Yeah, it had to have been 98. But it wasn't released in the OCG in Series 1. And it didn't appear in the anime in Duelist Kingdom. So, well, it didn't appear in the manga in Duelist Kingdom either. So Megamorph isn't really a legitimate inclusion. The card that I chose, and I think this is open to some debate, was Remove Trap, specifically because you would now have Dragon Capture Jar in the format, and given that Kaiba has a number of dragon monsters, and his 3 most powerful cards are dragon monsters, I do think Remove Trap would be a legitimate choice. Alternatively, possibly another powerful monster would also be a good choice. Possibly something like Yamadron, though that's not an especially powerful monster, but because in Duelist Kingdom, you lose if you don't have a monster on your field at some point during the turn. So you want to have closer to 25 monster cards in a deck. Though in his case, he has a lot of powerful monsters that will help him keep cards on... Well, so that he will have monsters on the field. So it's probably not going to be as big of an issue. But... you do generally want slightly more monster-heavy decks if you are actually playing Duelist Kingdom format. Speaking of, I might actually do some videos breaking down the game rules for some of these different formats so that we can kind of have a better understanding of what it is we're looking at when we talk about the rules and how these cards would have been played. Because I think that's very important in order to have a good understanding of how these decks would have actually come together in universe. Anyway, that is pretty much everything I have. Let me know if you have any thoughts or suggestions, and keep an eye out. I will be streaming this Sunday also, actually 2 weeks in a row. So this week and next week, we're actually going to get 2 videos, both weeks. Another deck video. I'm going to do Joey's next week, and then I'm going to actually stream more Legacy of the Duelist this Sunday and then next Sunday also. Uh, but I hope you all enjoy, and well, enjoy your day.